If you've ever said, "This is just how I am," or "I've always been like this," then this session is for you. Because what you're calling personality is often just repetition, and repetition can be redesigned. Just notice what comes up when I say that. See, most people don't realize this, but many of the things that we believe are fixed about us are simply patterns that were practiced long enough to feel permanent. Today is not about becoming someone new. It's about understanding how the person you are today was practiced into existence. And if this resonates with you, like, comment, and subscribe. No pressure. Now, before we talk about the brain, we are going to center ourselves and slow our body down. I want you to take a deep breath through your nose. Inhale, hold for 4, and exhale. And we're going to do that 2 times. So we're going to take a deep breath through the nose, hold, release. Deep breath through the nose, hold, release. This is not a lecture, so don't think this is a lecture. You don't need a pen and paper. You don't need to understand everything today. This is more like an orientation, just to kind of get you oriented on what actually works. Your brain learns best when it feels safe. And we know this because when we're stressed out, we can't think. At least I know I can't think when I'm stressed or overly stimulated. So nothing here is about judgment. You're not here to criticize your patterns. You're really here to understand them. And understanding them creates this space where you can ultimately change them to what you desire. Welcome. I'm Simply Bettina, your mind architect and lifestyle design strategist, and you've just entered a space where transformation is elegant, intentional, and grounded in truth. This work exists because for a long time, I thought motivation was all I needed. I believed if I just worked harder or became more disciplined, stayed motivated longer, everything would shift. But what I learned instead is the brain doesn't change through pressure, it changes through practice. That's why they say practice makes perfect. Once I had that foundational understanding of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, my patterns stopped feeling personal and really started feeling workable. I can change. I, I, I can do something different. I can rewrite my story. What? Yes, light bulb. Ooh, it was amazing feeling. And when something becomes understandable, it becomes changeable. So as you listen today, please think about how you feel. Notice whether this brings you relief or if it brings you resistance. Both matter. Internal data. Today's session is about understanding how the brain adapts and not forcing it to change. You don't need to fix anything today. You don't need to commit to anything today. Structure comes later. Awareness comes first. Awareness, structure. The conscious ascension compass begins with awareness because without understanding your inner patterns, any external change becomes temporary. And we've all experienced that. We want to change. We're doing good for a little short period of time, and then we revert back to our old patterns, our old behaviors. So today you are simply learning how the design studio works. The design studio, your brain. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to form new connections and weaken old ones based on what you repeat. That's why they say old habits die hard because we're constantly repeating those old habits. And so, if you want change, you have to change repetitive behaviors. Your brain is not fixed, it is efficient. It does what it's supposed to do. It strengthens what you practice and slowly releases what you don't. Your brain is not a judge, it is a recorder. It records everything. And that's why you have to be very intentional on what you do and what you allow in your mind. It records what you repeatedly think, what you repeatedly feel, and what you repeatedly do. It records everything. That's why sometimes you can get in the car and drive, blank out, not like a bad blank out, but you're just driving and you're daydreaming, and next thing you know, you end up somewhere and you're like, what? Why am I here? And I hope I'm not the only one that has been through this. If I am, ooh, ooh, telling my business. But the brain does keep you on autopilot. It just helps you. It helps you move a little bit more efficient. So when patterns repeat, such as overthinking, self-doubt, avoidance, people pleasing, it's not because your brain chose them. It's because your brain learned them through repetition. It's not failure, it's adaptation. And adaptation means change is possible. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I beg to differ. Let's slow down for a moment. Ask yourself, what? Let's slow down for a moment and ask yourself quietly, what thoughts do I repeat automatic? What are my automatic thoughts that are consistently going through my mind? What behaviors feel familiar, even when they don't feel aligned with who I want to be? You might desire something, but your behaviors aren't aligned with that desire at the moment because you are still moving from those patterns that have been consistently reinforced for so long. Don't judge yourself. Just understand familiarity feels safe to the brain. It's comfortable, even when it's not comfortable to your soul. Now just notice one pattern that you consistently do. And that's that awareness. You have to be able to understand what it is that you're doing. It might not be right, it might be right, but it just might not align with the version of yourself that you're trying to become. Now, like I said, notice that pattern and one thought that often shows up. And notice what happens next. What emotion follows that thought? How do you feel when you think of it? Are you like scared, anxious, nervous, agitated, ready to go? Like, how do you feel? This is how patterns form. You have a thought, emotion, and a behavior. This is the beginning of introspection. Now, moving forward, to interrupt the loop, take a slow breath and say to yourself silently, my brain is doing what it was trained to do, and I can train it to do differently. Yes, you can. This isn't positive thinking, but when you slow your breath down, you activate a part of your brain that is responsible for your choices instead of reaction. There's been plenty of times I wish I would have knew, just take a slow breath before moving forward. That way I could have made a better choice in some of my responses. However, we listen and we don't judge. When we do this, we create a space between the stimulus, what is affecting us, and our response. And in that space is where new pathways begin. Here's the part most people miss. The brain doesn't change through insight alone. It changes through repeated experience. Awareness opens the door. Action rewires. Awareness opens the door. Action rewires. Transformation happens through a simple process: awareness, interruption, replacement, repetition. First, you notice the pattern. What patterns am I consistently doing that do not align with who I desire to be, what I desire to do, where I desire to be at in life? And then you pause that automatic response. Don't do it. Just pause. Stop. Then you choose a small aligned action. Change the action. What would you normally do in this situation? And over time, repetition builds identity. Identity is not declared, it is rehearsed. This is why the Ultimate Transformation Lifestyle Design Guide focuses on designing daily practices, because lifestyle is what trains the brain over time. We want to change the lifestyle, baby. And this is why the Conscious Ascension Compass focuses on alignment. So the patterns that you repeat actually support the life that you're trying to build. Yes, it'll take some time, but trust me, it's worth it. So ask yourself now, what is one small pattern I could replace consistently that supports who I'm becoming instead of who I've been? What can you do? What is one small pattern? And be honest with yourself. No one's here to judge you. Like I said, we listen and we don't judge. Listen to yourself. Don't judge yourself. Be aware. Awareness is key to everything. Don't start with something dramatic that you can't keep up. Start with something so simple. It could be as simple as not having a soda pop or a cigarette, or staying up all night, scrolling on the phone, getting angry when someone cuts you off in traffic. There's so many things that you can interrupt, and it doesn't have to be massive, okay? We want to start small and build our stamina up. Just one small action your future self repeats daily. When you look forward, who do you see? What do you see? What do you see yourself doing? Who are you? Are you the same today, or are you different? And that different depends on what you do today. that's going to affect your future. So do something your future self is going to be proud of you of. Small actions may feel insignificant to the ego, but to the brain, they are enormous. That question activates your design studio. What is one small pattern that I could practice consistently? Okay, hope you got it. Now, from knowledge to strategy, understanding neuroplasticity removes the shame from the process of change. You're not bad at consistency. You're not stuck. You're simply wired. You're wired. We've been on this planet for some time. Most of the people I'm trying to speak to, 20, 30, 40, 50. You're simply wired. And wiring responds to design. What are we designing? Insight reduces shame and structure creates change. Transformation is not about force. It's about alignment, repetition, and patience. You gotta have patience, baby. This is not an easy journey. That's not mindset. That's neuroscience. Now we've come to the end of our session today. So before you leave, I want you to sit with this. If my brain becomes whatever I repeat, what kind of life am I currently rehearsing for? What are you rehearsing for? You don't need to answer that in this moment right now, but think about that all week. If your brain becomes whatever you repeat, what are you rehearsing for? Your brain is always changing. The only question is it changing by default? Or is it changing by design? You're not fixed, you're adaptable, you're designable. And if this resonated with you, like and subscribe. Stay with me. This channel exists to help us become the architect of our life and design a life that we were meant to live. Until next time, stay aware.